Canadian international Quinn scored a penalty for Vancouver Rise, and the crowd erupted, knowing that they might have just witnessed history. A random woman from Canada by the name of Diana Matheson had a dream of a professional football league for women in Canada, and she tried for many, many years, not being able to get support till she finally started the league. Except none of that is true. Besides the part where Diana Matheson did start a professional football league, but she was far from a nobody. She's far from a random woman in Canada. And it didn't take her many years. She was able to do it pretty quickly. This is a story of how a Canadian, no, international football legend by the name of Diana Matheson decided to start a women's football league in her country. And in the process, she did something more extraordinary off the field than she ever did in the field, showing everybody that women's football does have a lot of support. Diana Matheson did have a dream, and this is the story of how that dream became a reality. This is the story of how Diana Matheson started the Northern Super League on Wednesday, April 16, 2025. Vancouver Rise played in the inaugural game against the Calgary Wild, and in that game, Quinn scored the only goal, the winning penalty. And how fitting was it that Quinn, another Canadian legend with over 100 caps for Canada, was the one that scored the inaugural goal. However, before that game, another Canadian legend, Diana Matheson, had a vision for a Canadian Women's League. Let's take a step back into Diana Matheson's career and how she got here. Picture this. It's the 92nd minute of a bronze game at the 2012 Olympics. The score is tied between France and Canada, and the game looked like it's going to overtime. But one player on the field had other plans. Sophia Smith from Canada first takes a shot as Canada is desperately trying to win the game in the dying minutes. But French keeper Sarah Bohati makes a great save. The ball falls on the feet of Diana Matheson, who with her quick reflexes and great positioning is unwilling to let another opportunity go by. She quickly scores the winning goal. The whole entire team goes crazy because in that moment, Canada had ended a 76-year Olympic drought for the Canadian women's soccer team. This is who Diana Matheson is, a clutch midfielder who had over 200 caps for the Canadian national team, 19 goals, including that iconic one for Canada in the bronze medal game. In 2003, Diana Matheson played for the Ottawa Fury in the USLW League. It was one of the few opportunities for women in North America. That experience showed her the importance of having Canadian teams to give opportunities for Canadian girls and women to be able to pursue their football career. It played a massive influence. That experience showed her how limited professional opportunities were for women in Canada. It was a big reason why she started the Northern Super League. It had a massive influence at her at that point. Ottawa Fury played in a semi-pro league, so she was able to also play for Princeton during this time. Once her college and USL Women's League career was over, that's when she started her pro career in Europe. First playing for Team Strømsgodset in the Norwegian top league from 2008 to 2010. In her first season, or first half season with the team, she helped them get second place in the Norwegian League. She scored an impressive 11 goals in 32 games for Team Strømsgodset. After that, she would go on to play for the Washington Spirit and the Ottawa Royals, spending the most time playing in Washington, playing a total of 67 games there and scoring 23 goals. She was also under contract with Seattle Reign, however she was not able to play for them because of an ACL injury, and then she was supposed to end her career with Kansas City Current, but retired before playing a game there. One thing that I found that was extremely fascinating was that Diana Matheson played more games for her national team than she did for all her club teams combined, which goes to show you how women, especially a couple of years ago, did not have that much opportunities as men do in this beautiful game. She did have a very distinguished career with the Canadian national team. As I mentioned, scoring 19 goals and 206 caps. Besides that 2012 bronze medal in the Olympics, she was able to get another one at the 2016 Olympics as well, where she was interestingly a teammate of Quinn, the one who scored that first goal in the Northern Super League. As you can see, she had a very successful career as a player, one with a lot of accomplishments. But once that career was over, she started focusing on new aspirations.
If Canada's women's national team wants to keep competing on the world stage, we need a pro league.
The moment that she retired, she started advocating for a women's league in Canada, as well as bringing the NWSL to Canada as well, bringing a team from the NWSL to Canada to give women in Canada options to play professionally. December 2021, the year that she retired, she came up with a plan that she presented to the Canadian Soccer Association, but it went nowhere. Then a little bit afterwards, she decided to enroll in a master's program in Queen's University at Kingston. That's where she met a classmate by the name of Thomas Gilbert. Together they started working on this dream of creating a women's league in Canada together. They founded Project 8 Sports Incorporated, which later would become the owner and operator of Northern Super League. In end of December 2022, they announced that they were planning on starting a professional league in Canada. They were eventually able to gain pending membership from the Canadian Soccer Association for a professional league. Eventually, they were able to attract their first ownership group that was interested in creating a team in this league, which was AFC Toronto. 5 more additional ownership groups would show interest in becoming part of this group. In the inaugural season, there being 6 teams in Halifax, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver. Even the name Northern Super League was purposely chosen because Diana Matheson didn't want to emulate other successful leagues. She wanted to create her own legacy. So she purposely omitted having Canada or women's from the name, which I kind of find it really cool that they omitted the women's part because it was going to be a successful league. It wasn't going to be a successful women's league. Starting this league, she showed that there was support not just for women's soccer, but for women's sports. She was able to attract outside of AFC Toronto 5 other franchises in major cities such as Halifax, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, like I mentioned before, Calgary, and Vancouver. To have a franchise in this league, there was a $1 million franchise fee, or it was waivable if the owners were going to invest $10 million over the next 5 years. Franchise ownership also did give owners of these teams ownership in the league as well. Outside of Diana Matheson, another individual who was very instrumental in bringing this league into fruition was Canadian football legend, international football legend, Christine Sinclair. Christine Sinclair first started off as an advisor, and then she became owner of one of the franchises, Vancouver Rise. For Christine Sinclair, this was also something that was very personal as a professional athlete, as somebody who was really big in Canadian soccer. Christine Sinclair herself said, "I really thought that 2012 was going to be a turning point for this country and bringing professional soccer home, but it never happened, and there's still no pathway into this country." So Christine Sinclair became part of that pathway. Along with Diana Matheson, she made sure that Canada was going to have that professional football league. The league was able to get traction really quickly before it even got off the foot. Major broadcasting deals such as with Bell Communication, their affiliate companies such as CBC, and ESPN in the United States, as well as many major sponsorship deals. The league was also able to attract many Canadian and international stars. Some of them, like I mentioned, Quinn, who was a big Canadian football player, as well as Jade Kovavich, who had scored many goals in League One, a semi-pro league in Canada, as well as having had a career in Europe. And then outside of that, there was Erin McLeod. Even though she was a little bit of an older player, she was a player that had had many experiences for the Canadian national team, having over 100 caps. And outside of Canadian players, they were also able to attract some international players, such as Millie Clegg, who is a 19-year-old, very promising New Zealand defender. The league allowed each team to be able to sign 7 foreign players. Besides that, they have a salary cap, which is very typical of North American sports, not so much in Europe and other parts of the world. But each team has a salary cap of $1.5 million, and they have a minimum salary that they have to pay each player of $50,000. They're also able to sign 1 marquee player outside of the salary cap. The format of the league was designed to have 25 regular season games, with the top 4 teams making the playoffs. In the first season, in the inaugural season, AFC Toronto was by far the best team in the regular season, and they finished top of the league, and of course they made it to the playoffs as the #1 seed. Joining them in the playoffs was Ottawa Rapid, Vancouver Rise, and Montreal Roses. So at this point, most of the first season is done. We are approaching the playoffs. The season will end in the middle of November. So we can analyze how the first season went, whether it was a success or was it a failure. Let's take a look first at the attendance figures. In the first inaugural matches for a lot of the teams, for a lot of the home openers, That's when a lot of the teams had the highest attendance. There was 2 teams that on their home opener they had over 14,000 fans who showed up. Slightly over 14,000, but very impressive. It showed that there was support there. Those numbers did dwindle down, but I'm sure those teams were expecting that, especially because for a lot of the openers, these teams were marketing it as the first time that there was a professional women's game in those cities. So it was heavily marketed. So it was very expected that they were going to have more fans for those games. They were playing in bigger stadiums than their typical stadiums for the home openers with this anticipation. So yes, it did go down. And the league average ended up being 3.6 thousand fans a game, which is pretty decent, especially for an inaugural season, especially once the hype went away. Some teams were able to have an average of slightly more than 4,000, such as Vancouver Rise and Halifax. There's promise. The league will have to make sure that it maintains that momentum, that it grows off of that momentum, especially when that initial momentum fades, which it has, and I feel like they've been able to sustain it really well. So attendance has gone really good, which has been very promising for the league. The league, I feel like, has viewed this current season as very successful because they're exploring having expansion teams already. They're looking into Central and Western Canada for potential new markets to expand to by 2027. However, outside of the monetary success, outside of the fans that are coming in, I think the biggest success that this league has had is with the players that have come through. Because that was always going to be the biggest success. The player development. This was the point of this league, to give women another avenue, to give them a league where they can develop more as players, especially Canadian players, so they don't have to go overseas, so that they have a league in their own country. Let's take a look at some of the players who had the biggest success stories this season. The biggest success story, in my opinion, is Kaylee Hunter. Kaylee Hunter is a 17-year-old Canadian forward who before the season she was playing semi-pro. This was her first season playing professionally. Before that, she was playing in semi-pro leagues in Canada, in Alberta, as well as in British Columbia, in League One, British Columbia, League One, Alberta. So this was an opportunity for her to show her talent in a professional atmosphere. This was the whole point of this league, to give young Canadian players a place where they could develop, where they can develop in a professional manner. Kaylee Hunter is a very promising young Canadian player who was before playing in youth Canadian national teams. And in this inaugural first season professionally, she had 14 goals in 22 games, being the second top scorer in the league. Her good play recently earned her a call-up with the Canadian women's national team. Hopefully, Kaylee Hunter can keep developing further and further, that playing professionally so young, having a league where she can develop at such a young age, will hopefully let her develop as an athlete, let her reach her full potential as a player. Another young Canadian player who had a very successful season was Holly Ward. Before this, Holly Ward was playing college in the United States for Texas, and this was her first opportunity to play professionally. She had tried to play in the WSL with Louisville, didn't make the team, but then she was able to play with the Vancouver Rise. Now, as a forward, she didn't score as many goals as Kaylee Hunter. She ended up having 6 goals in 25 matches. What was really promising, and what was promising for the league, is that Holly Ward received 4 call-ups with the Canadian national team while she was playing in the Northern Super League. And she scored 2 goals. She was the first player from the Canadian Super League who scored for the Canadian national team, which was a huge success because it was showing that these players can contribute to the national team, that the Northern Super League is a league to be taken seriously. Phoebe Prinham was another player who had a very successful season in the league. She has dual citizenship with the United States and Canada, hasn't played for any national team. Before this, she had a career in Europe, but it was very uneventful. And then when she came to the Northern Super League, she was the top scorer. So she had her breakout season. She scored 18 goals in 25 games, having a breakout season, being a late bloomer. I also think it's good to mention an international player who had a good season. Esther Okoronkwo is showing the league's ability to attract top foreign players. Esther is a player who's played for the Nigerian national team. She has 25 caps and has 9 goals. She was one of the top players in this inaugural first season, showing that international players can have really good season, top international players can have good season, and they can come into this league and be productive as well. Showing the league's ability to not just be a good league for Canadian players, for women players in general. These individual stories is what makes this league so important. The player development, giving players opportunities, giving women an opportunity to play football. And women are gaining more and more opportunities to play football. This is what this is all about. And I hope this league keeps developing, and I hope we keep hearing more great stories. I hope the players that I mentioned, their careers blossom, and we hear a lot of positive things from them in the future. But this is why this is important. This is what's so important about having a league like this. This is why Diana Matheson had this dream. Diana Matheson did have a dream. On the field, it inspired Canadian girls to dream bigger. But now she has a new dream. And that dream is giving those same girls a place where they can fulfill their own dreams.